I'm delighted to welcome the Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, to the show right now. Good morning to you.
Morning, Julia.
Good morning. Well, international arrivals for the first time are going to be required to present a COVID test that is negative. They've taken within 72 hours of travelling into to England and from other parts of the country. Why has it taken so long?
Three reasons. One, it's good, but it's nowhere near as good as quarantining. So we still have to have quarantining. That's the gold standard. We've had it all along. Number two, because actually we've needed the technology to catch up with the ability to deliver this at sufficient scale, including, for example, the quality of lateral flow tests. Those are the ones where you get a quicker answer through perhaps 30 minutes or so, that availability coming about. Previously, you might have to wait a couple of days, and then, of course, it's out of date by the time you're flying. And then thirdly, we're particularly concerned to make sure that these variants that are coming around, including, for example, the South African variant, that we don't know what happens in terms of the efficacy of the vaccines with some of these things. We want to make sure that we're absolutely super cautious at this point to keep things out of the country, which we don't have here at the moment at any scale. So for all those three reasons, we're doing it today or this week coming. But as I say, it's an addition. It's not to replace quarantine, which, as I say, is far and away more effective overall.
Well, this is where a lot of people are really rather confused. No 10-day 10-day quarantine, even though if you've got a negative test, seems rather bizarre to an awful lot of people. We know the travel industry has been desperately calling for you to have tests. You said, no, we can't. You have the test. Or at least, at the very least, people being able to do a test and then quarantine for a few days and then take a test again. No, you still have to quarantine for 10 days. Quarantine only works if you check up on it. We've had some very high-profile people. Rita Ora flying back in from the Middle East, holding a big birthday party. She wasn't quarantining. Has she been prosecuted? No. I mean, were there any checks? No. I've taken 3 sets of flights since this pandemic, all of them legally, I'd like to point, all very safely since the pandemic's had. And not on one occasion were any questions asked of me, any checks made whatsoever after my return or on my return.
So, first of all, like all laws, there's a good deal of requirement for people to follow the law. You're breaking it if you don't, and it's ultimately you can get a criminal record for it. So most people won't want to do that. You can certainly get fined, and it's not the case that nobody's checked. About a quarter of people coming off flights are checked by Border Force. I think it's a 1.3 million checks, something like that. So this is not nothing. And also Public Health England call people. They've called 1/3 people. So it's not the case that no one's checked.
So you get a call. Wait a minute, you get a call. How on earth does that keep people in quarantine?
So I was going to say, like any rule, speeding or anything else, it is possible to break the law and boast about it, but it doesn't make it a good thing to do, and people shouldn't be doing that, and it is dangerous to do. And to answer your first point, the reason a test doesn't give us the information we need is the only thing the test tells you is at the moment of taking the test, coronavirus couldn't be detected. It doesn't mean you didn't have it. It could be during the incubation period, which, as you know, is several days. Yeah. You and I have had long conversations about false negatives and positives before, so I know that you're all over this. The only way to be absolutely sure, unfortunately, is to quarantine. But I should also point out we have provided a test to release service, which started in November, which does mean you can reduce your period of quarantine when you come in from abroad for 5 days.
Just to clarify, because there may be people who are still abroad or people who are travelling for business or the like, when does this rule start when you have to have a negative COVID test to even get on the plane or before you, presumably, I'm assuming before you travel through the Channel Tunnel as well. When does that actually start?
It'll start next Thursday. Your carrier won't bring you in unless you've taken the test, because it's their responsibility as well as yours. Just in the same way as they won't bring you if you don't have a passport, for example. They won't let you get on board if you can't show you've had a negative test.
Okay, yeah, I mean, certainly I just went on holiday to Antigua. It was very clear you have to have that test with there. Everyone was checking that both before and after the flight. Let's talk about other aspects of things. Let's talk about the vaccine rollout. A lot of concern that although, I mean, what a brilliant job getting the vaccines approved, first of all. One of the vaccines that one that really is going to hold out most hope for us, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, developed here. All credit to the government where it has been able to get these processes through. A lot of concern, though, that we are just not rolling out that vaccine as quickly as we can, and that other countries who are starting later than us may end up actually vaccinating more people sooner than us. Why was so little done in the planning in terms of recruiting staff, establishing sites, getting the military involved? Why was this not done in advance? Why was it not done in the summer when we had lots more time to spare?
Well, I have to say, first of all, it is of course true that however fast we're doing it, we always want to do it faster. So I agree with you there. Having said that, we've actually vaccinated more Brits than the entirety of the rest of Europe put together. At this point. So we are well ahead of the game. In fact, in France, when we got to 1 million, they got to 300 vaccines. So we are, 300 people. So we are way ahead. And what the Prime Minister announced last night, which involves using the military, I think is going to speed it up again. You may remember a couple of weeks ago when we had that Kent lorry crisis, I called in the military. I asked them to help us get the testing done, and Kent cleared. I actually asked them to do it by, I don't think I've told anyone this before, but I actually, the timing I set was by the evening of Boxing Day. I mean the day after, not the bank holiday Boxing Day, which was a few days later. They actually had it done by the lunchtime. I mean, it was just extraordinary. So I've no doubt at all, you combine the NHS workers with our brilliant military, I think we will see this rolling out at hundreds of thousands a day. And as I say, we're already pretty much leading the world.
Go on, Shapps. Absolutely all credit to the government where it gets it right. But that doesn't mean then we give a free pass where you get it wrong.
I get that.
Saying we will roll it out at that level, I've got no doubt at all we will. But we could have been rolling it out at that level already, and that's the concern. The pharmacy. No, it's not just that. We could have been ready to go. It's not just a lack of the actual access to the vaccine. We don't have enough staff to do it. We've been got a ridiculous situation where GPs are being told, stop treating other patients for other things and start giving the jabs. When until last weekend, when the media raised this issue, no one had bothered contacting the major pharmacy chains. I know for a fact that Lloyd's pharmacy chain, which dominates the north of this country, had not been contacted before last weekend, even though they were rolling out the jab from the Monday, until the media said, shouldn't you contact the pharmacists when they carry out the flu jab campaign every single year? We know that we don't have enough staff recruited. We know that the military have not been involved at every single level of this. With all due respect, and I want to give credit where it's due, this isn't good enough.
Well, I'm listening very carefully to what you're saying, and actually, frankly, pleased I'm not a politician in any other country in the world, pretty much, and certainly nowhere else.
I'd be giving them hell.
Given that we've done more than all of them put together. But I mean, you're right that we obviously want to roll this out really, really fast. But we've already done 1.5 million. To put that in perspective, I mean, even on Monday this week, let alone now, nearly a quarter of all over 80-year-olds had at least one jab. If we, in 5.5 weeks' time, if we can get this entire plan rolled out, and I don't want to make it sound, there's a lot of things that need to go right, including the military involved and all the 1,000 GP-led distribution, vaccine centres and all the rest of it. If we get this right, we will have 88% of the most vulnerable groups. This is where the groups that people have been dying from, the demographic who have died through coronavirus. We will have 88% of them in 5.5 weeks' time with the first jab in their arm and protection on its way, which is an extraordinary level of rollout. And what people won't know behind the scenes is it was the UK government decided to back the Oxford study with £20 million. They backed building the vaccine manufacturing, which hasn't existed in this country before, for £230 million. We've ended up with our own vaccine, which is going to not only help us with 100 million vaccines, but the world with the billions that they're going to try and produce 3 billion of them during 2021. We were the first country in the world to approve the Pfizer vaccine and start injecting it. I think when it comes to the vaccine story, part of this, this country has quite literally led the world. Yeah. And you're right, a lot needs to go right, but we can be in a position in 5-6 weeks' time where we have the majority of people who die from coronavirus, most likely to die from coronavirus, protected. And I can't wait. I can't wait for my mum, who's 83, to be vaccinated. My dad, who's 89, sadly very seriously ill and hospital
I'm
to
very,
get that
very sorry to
vaccination.
hear that.
It cannot come a moment too
I
soon.
absolutely agree, and I give all credit where it's due. I applauded on air, applauded Matt Hancock for the fact they made the decision to buy all these vaccines. We know that the European Union and America, they simply have not bought enough of these vaccines in advance, and the manufacture, all of that. But given that the country is back in lockdown, given that businesses are closed, children are not getting their education properly, lives have been shut down, families have been separated, freedoms taken away on such a grand scale, and it's not just for a matter of weeks. You know it, I know it. It's going to be for months. It is absolutely imperative that the government does what the public, not me. I'm sorry. I don't trust that we're going to do this the way we need to do this. I don't trust we're going to get our freedoms back unless we fight for them. I'm genuinely terrified that this is what life is going to be like for many, many years to come at this rate. If the government does not roll this out at the speed it should be rolled out, this should be 24/7, absolutely, I was going to say 365, it shouldn't take that long, rolled out. And at the point when we have got the over 70s vaccinated, we're told by mid-February, at that point, 2 weeks after that, 3 weeks after that, I want every single one of my freedoms back, and I want every business back open. I want every child back at school. And you can't promise me that.
Well, you and I will be joining each other on the barricades to get our freedoms back.
Will you? Will you promise that?
Yes, Julia. I hate being a Secretary of State in a Conservative government of all things that has spent the last year finding freedoms and removing them because if we don't, then yet more people die. I hate being in that position. We don't have a choice right now, I think, but to go down that route. I mentioned my dad happens to be in hospital. He's not got COVID, but that hospital is under enormous pressure. And we must make sure we allow the NHS to deal with the scale of this, and things like the fantastic new drug, the arthritis drug that we now discover can dramatically assist. Those sort of discoveries are fantastic. But I will be right at the front of the queue to provide back, to scrap the bureaucracy, to remove unnecessary tests and all the rest of it, to get people moving again. I can't wait. But we just have to be a little bit patient this next few weeks. We've got to get this vaccine rolled out. And I totally agree with you about the need for speed. And we are throwing everything the state has at it. And as I said, with that Kent lorry crisis a couple of weeks ago, I genuinely found that when you have the levers of state at your disposal, you can really just deliver things quickly. And we cleared Kent very quickly and have delivered 50,000 in that particular case coronavirus tests, and are continuing to do it. It's out of the news, but we're doing it every single day. We're doing thousands of them to keep the hauliers flowing.
Transport Secretary Grant Shapps, I hope we don't have to man the barricades, but it'd be good to know that you're on our side when we do. And all credit, all speed, and best wishes to your family and for your father as well.